Right, hello everybody and good evening again, and welcome to our number 7 class. So this week we are going to be doing a little bit of an underpainting for our still life work that we were doing last week. So if you remember, we were looking at ways to arrange different objects, 3 to 5 objects, keeping it nice and simple. So you had to choose a theme, you had to put those objects in a still life that you could then work from and draw. And if you got that far, indeed, you could start adding a little bit of tone and shadow. So I kind of started that off a little bit last week. So this week what we'll be doing is looking just at tone and shadow a little bit more, but using acrylic paints. You can use inks if you've got them. I was toying with the idea of either doing an ink underpainting or acrylic, but I've gone for the option of acrylics. You don't need many colors for this. In fact, it'd be more of a mono painting. And the idea of an underpainting is to help you decipher where the darks and the lights are, but also it gives you a good guide for when it comes to painting back over the top, or adding layers of color over the top later and creating more of a color picture. So we're going to look at that this lesson. The other thing I wanted to touch on was looking at how we can photograph, or how we can light our objects in different ways to create different feelings within the pictures too, or different atmosphere, if you like, as well. So we're going to have a look at some of the photos I took of my still life from last week. I set it up again earlier today, took some different photographs with lighting from different directions, just to give you an idea of how perhaps it can change the way a picture looks and help you as well with your painting as well, because you know, if it's well lit, you can see those highlights, you can see those shadows and everything else a little bit more clearly perhaps, and you can be a bit more selective. So not only are we designing the composition, the arrangement of things, but we're also designing how the thing might be lit and how it might feel too. Okay, so I collected a few examples just to show us very quickly, so we'll go and have a look. Okay, so here's some more still lives that I took off the internet last night. I got a lot of these from Pinterest. They're really nice to look at, because basically it gives you an idea of this thing that we're talking about with lighting. So if we just lit the whole thing from lots of different directions, it could look quite flat. You wouldn't have as much to look at, and indeed, of course, it wouldn't have as much atmosphere or feeling in it. So I've got there's about 5 here altogether. So let's just have a look at one of these to start with. I think this is the skull one. Yep, so I'll just move that up a little bit to the top. So on this one, you can see that the light is coming in from the left hand side, and we've got these really nice soft and some deep shadows cast around the skull, and it's going to help us create a much more three-dimensional effect as well, and guide us through the picture. So a nice simple composition here, and you can get a real good sense of the lighting on there. The other one, which I think is not that one, that one, I'll just move that up as well to the top. So I quite like the lighting on this one as well. Again, the lighting is coming from the side, slightly above, but we've got these beautiful highlights on the fruit at the front. I think it's what is it, passion fruit or something? No, I can't remember the name of it. Pomegranate. It's a pomegranate, and we've got all these little bits of lighting highlights on there, and look at that detail, how that detail is able to come out with the shadows on the side of the leaf in the design there as well. So so some really nice, it creates a little bit of atmosphere, it gives us a sense of light, it gives us a sense of, you know, the world outside of this object as well. you know, the time of the day perhaps as well. So oh, and one that I really liked as well, which I thought I'm going to show everybody this one as well, is this one's a pencil drawing, obviously mono, so just the greys, but I just really love the detailing on this one. Again, we've got lovely sense of light coming from above, but also I just really love this cross hatching and the detail that's and the time that must have been spent on this drawing. There was a whole load of them actually, but I just thought it'd be really nice to show you that one too. So again, you can see the lighting is coming from the left here, and then you've got these nice deep shadows and things. So often when we look at photos, we think, oh, that's a lovely photo, like say a fashion model or something like that, and everything is so highly lit that there aren't any shadows. So creating some nice shadows, like on the statue over here as well, actually, this bust or head, we've got really strong light. So it almost goes back to thinking of the chiaroscuro that we were looking at with the Dutch tulip painters as well. So really deep dark shadows and very strong highlights on there as well. So have a think about how you might want to light up your picture. Here's the one I did last week with you. Okay, so one thing I realized as painting it whilst I was working on this is that I could have spent some more time lighting it better to create some shadows. There are some quite nice shadows on here, but we can go a bit further than that perhaps. So I've photographed a few different versions to show you how the lighting can change according to whichever picture it is we're going to look at. So here we've got the lighting coming from a completely different angle. So you can see that just there. We've got stronger, harsher shadows. The light was quite close to the object, which created the objects, which was created these very strong, crisp shadows, if you like. And this one was lit more from above as well. There we go. So yeah, the lighting's coming more from above here. So we've got the shadows where the tongue of the shoe is leaning forward, and we've got shadows under the shoe a little bit more as well. And then finally, this one, which I think was one of my favorites. I took loads more than this, but the lighting is coming from the right hand side obviously, and we've got really nice deep shadows on the shoes, and the gloves look highlighted along the top. So I quite like that one, which I'm going to work from this evening to do some painting from. So we'll go over and have a look at what I've prepared so far. So here's my drawing that I did last week, and what I did today is I've made an outline picture of that onto art paper, and what I'm going to do for this underpainting is I'm not going to use very many colors for this. I'm going to be using first of all creating a wash of color over the top like this. So we've got a bit of tone, a bit of color that we're going to work into, and I'll just show how some of you would have seen this quite a few times, but it's good to have another look. So I'm going to use kind of a warm brown color, which I think was sienna, and I'm watering down the paint quite a bit because I don't want it too thick or opaque, and I've got quite a large brush, so I can't tell you the size of it because the brush is quite old and it's worn off now. In fact, bits of it are flaking off as we speak. But I've used a filbert brush, which has got this kind of round end on it like that. So it's a very sort of flexible brush to use, and a little bit of water with the acrylic to then do a wash of colour over the top. So you might find yourself just dipping back into the water occasionally, but make sure you put it with a bit more paint again. So if you haven't used acrylic before, you might not know that it does dry really quick, even if you've got wet paper. So this is just cartridge paper that I'm using on this evening. Use watercolor paper, it might work a little bit longer, in other words stay wet for longer. But there we go. So we've got a nice undercoat on there. Okay, I've done the same with this one. This one's a little bit paler than the other, but as you can see it on the screen a bit better, it's probably worth me using that. Okay, now let's see if I can just put on my photo. There's my photo. So the arrangement's a bit different. You may notice that the hyacinth in the background has significantly grown. I left it outside because it was I couldn't have it indoors because the smell makes me sneeze and things like that. But I've used this one because we've got really lovely strong shadows, got a nice sense of light in there. It's artificial light rather than natural light, so it's not quite the same as some of the pictures that we've just been looking at, but it'll give me a good sense of where tones and shadows can go. And on here I can zoom right in if I want to and have a look. I was going to print a copy of it actually, but my printer's being a pain. So right, okay, so for adding tone, start gradually, so you don't need to go super dark straight away. So I've got a bit of this burnt umber just here, which I can use to start adding in the tones. So you can start very gently to begin with, and then as you progress you can start getting a little bit darker. So if you want to make a really dark tone with just colour rather than black, then I suggest you know trying out a little bit of ultramarine with the burnt umber, and you can get as dark as you like. Really, you can almost get like a chromatic black, if you like, that you can paint in the deeper tones. But start off with something like a burnt umber, and you can paint in those tones nice and gradually. All right, so just get some brushes, hold on. So I've got a couple of brushes here. Perhaps need a smaller one, but I'm going to start here anyway. So you can use a little bit of water with that, and then I'm going to just start by adding in some very light tone. I'll zoom in a little bit. Whoop. There we go. So the idea of an underpainting is that you've got something that guides you through the rest of the process and helps you to then add colour back over the top of the picture you've been working on. So having a colour underneath to begin with is really going to help, because when we add some white and things in a short while, you'll see how the highlights which you create with the white paint and a little bit of colour perhaps will help lift the shoe or whatever it is you're painting out of the picture frame or out of the picture. Just realised I'm not on screen. Yeah. So I created this outline by just taking a tracing of my drawing from last week, so that I could use that drawing in the lesson to show you what I'd been doing. But you can, of course, just paint straight over the top of your drawing. But if you don't want to do that, which I completely understand, then you can take a tracing of your picture. Obviously tracing paper is good for that, which I didn't say to bring. I was almost tempted actually to do a second still life, but just need to show you this stuff and how to go about adding in your tones and your highlights. So we're starting really gradually on here. There's a lot of detail now because of all these shadows that you won't be able to see anymore in comparison to last week. Also, all my plants have sprouted. My hyacinth. So remember that with acrylics as well, you can paint back over the top of them, so you don't need to be, you know, too precious about everything. You can just add in this tone and you can correct it a little bit later. So it's not like perhaps some people say like a watercolor or anything like that, because it's a bit forgiving in that you can paint back over the top. Just going to put some shadow on the gloves, and then we'll do a bit of white. And hopefully we'll be able to see the object sort of emerging a little bit. These gloves are in a different position as well. Not too worried about that. Okay, I can work that out. And then the shoelaces, I can get a bit more detail perhaps in those this week. And then I'm going to add a little bit of white, get some out. So because the paint's quite thin at this stage, you'll find the different layers will come together, merge a little bit more as well. So you can do a bit more on blending and things later. It's also handy to have a little tissue just to dampen off your brush. So I'm using quite a bit of water with this at the moment. You'll see when the paint is watered down like this, it will, the water after it's started to dry, which will be quite quick, it'll start to fade a little bit as well. So it's not very much paint at all. You don't need tons of paint for this. It's just about getting the basic tones onto the paper. To begin with. So I'm just looking for the highlights within the photo. Within the objects. To create some sort of sense of the form as well. Okay, so I'll carry on doing that. I'm really hot actually, I've had the heater on too long. So you can already see there that we have already got a little bit of a sense of light and shadow on this picture. I'm going to carry on working into that to bring those shoes right out of the image this evening, using the light setup that we've got up here on the screen. Okay, so there's a great way to start this evening. I hope that makes sense. What we'll be doing after this is I'll start painting with a little bit more detail and colour back over the top. Okay. Right, so we've made a good start with doing a drawing. So remember, this is from a photograph. From a photocopy that I made earlier on of my drawing from the previous weeks, and I have put a layer of colour over the whole thing. So the photocopy was actually a tracing of an outline of my drawing, so that I could keep the original drawing and then make a tracing and photocopy it up onto some art paper, or cartridge paper in this case, so that I could do this underpainting. And then I'm very gently putting in some layers of tone onto the surface of this outline, so that we can build up the tonal values of the picture as a quick underpainting that can then be worked over next week, which you'll see me doing obviously in the next lesson, lesson 8, which will be the conclusion of this small series of work on still life, before we try something else before the end of this series. So you can see that I've gradually started building in the tone. Now I'm going in a bit heavier with some of the highlights here, in order to start to bring out and model the shape of these boots. You can see, so I'm adding a little bit of acrylic and then a touch of water to blend that into the darker areas, to really start to pick out some of the shapes and details within the image. So using more of a round brush to get into some of these details. Ideally, I would have painted this picture much larger, but knowing how much time I have on this during the lessons, we've gone for a smaller option. So the other thing here is looking, you can see I just painted the background. So I've looked at some of the, shadows and things behind here as well. And then, so in other words, I'm looking at the negative shapes around the objects as well at the same time. Now I'm getting a bit darker, and for this painting, to get in those really deep shadows in the picture, I am using ultramarine and burnt umber together, which creates a really lovely deep
dark colour that enables the tone to start to lift the boots out of the background, which is what you can see going on here. And then we've got some high contrast areas with the almost like pure white going over the top. So you will find, as I've mentioned perhaps, is that, you know, you put your colours down, especially if you mix water, and as they dry they fade a little bit, which means you've got to do more layers, which is a great thing to do because it enables you to create a sense of depth in the image as well. So you can see how the shoes are starting to have more form to them, more shape and so forth as we continue. So the reflections on this trowel aren't as prominent, they're quite dull really, because the light is coming around the back of them, if you can see that in this picture. So next week what I'll be doing is I will probably add a little bit more tone and shadow briefly, but you'll see that I've already started to add some colour back over the top of the boots as well. So we're nearing the end of this week's lesson. I hope you've enjoyed looking and watching what I've been doing here. Have a go. See if you can create an underpainting using one of your drawings from our still life class, or indeed from anything really. It creates a really good, clear idea of how you're going to use tones and shadows, or where those tones and shadows are. One other thing you can do is turn your photo black and white as well, and that enables you to see the tones and shadows without the distractions of the colours in the image as well. Okay, so I shall see you all in next week's lesson, hopefully, and have a fantastic week. And don't forget to like, and if you like, follow as well. Why not? Thank you very much. I'll see you soon. Bye.